Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Keelloo Talks. This is episode 14 in the series, and today I'm going to be discussing one topic only. And again, we're kind of getting repetitive here with anime topics, but I really just felt like recording something, so that's kind of why I'm doing this. We are going to be talking about a controversial anime, and as in controversial, I mean people don't understand why it actually exists, and I'm going to try to talk about why I think it's a concept that wasn't necessarily the best. It wasn't the most well laid out concept, but I think it could be more well done in the future. So let's get into it. And you may have already guessed if you watch anime or whatever, but we're going to be talking about One Room. Yay! Okay, so One Room is an anime that has a fairly poor score on MAL, and as I always say, you can't always trust MAL reviews because a lot of those people are either overly criticism wise or they just give everything a super high rating because of the whole American scoring system bullshit. Whatever. There's a whole number of reasons, but anyway, what One Room is, it is a, from what I've gathered, the term is kinetic visual novel. And what I mean by that is that it's not an anime that features like any physical protagonist. Like, you don't see the main character. He's there clearly, but you don't ever see him because it's heavily based on kind of the structure of what visual novels do. You don't. Sometimes you might see the protagonist in a CG scene, but you don't, for the most part, see him. You just hear him talking. Or not hear him. You read him talking. So that's what One Room is, and I'm a little bit biased here with One Room. Oh, excuse me. Is because the art is done by one of my favorite anime artists, Kantoku. If you haven't checked out his work, I'd highly recommend it. There's a ton out there, but this is an anime that is completely done in the style of art that he is used to doing. So let's just get into it. I'm just gonna go over in a general sense of how the anime operates. Each episode is around 4 minutes long. It's very short, so you can get through the entire series, season one and season two, in less than an hour. And there's 4 episodes each for 3 girls, for a total of 12, of course. So I'm going to be talking about each of those girls in as general of a sense as I can. There's going to be some spoilers. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to spoil the most of it. There's not that many spoilers in this. I mean, it's mostly a bunch of side stories. So let's get into it, starting with season one. Okay, we have our first and foremost girl, Yui. Yui moves in next to the protagonist, and they kind of immediately bond, of course, because it's a kinetic visual novel. Visual novels always have this sort of thing. Yui's very kind, polite, but she's not doing so hot in school, and she's apparently trying quite hard, but she's not really getting anywhere. So what she ends up doing is asking the protagonist for help in studying. So that's what happens, and they kind of bond over this whole thing. I mean, Yui clearly develops feelings for him, and they end up, of course, dating at the end. So that's Yui's. I'm going to get more into Yui because she does appear in season two, and it's a lot more developed, if you want to say that. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of Yui. Just don't be disappointed at this. And I assume all these different girl routes are completely separate from each other. So take that with a grain of salt, but that's what I believe. The next one is Natsuki. Natsuki is his Imoto, his younger sister, who over the summer decides to come and visit him and stay with him for a while. And, this might raise a red flag for some people, like, oh, is there going to be incest? No, there's not going to be any fucking incest, because not all anime have incest. It's not like just because a little sister appears, there's going to be incest. This isn't fucking Hitori Goto. His younger sister is a very classical, stereotypical tsundere, you know, Baka Oni-chan. That sort of shit. She kind of does like the housework and shit while he's at work. She's nice. She's kind of sarcastic and all that, like typical tsunderes. Personally, I think this is my least favorite character in the entire, season 1 and season 2. I think this whole arc is kind of pointless. I mean, yeah, okay, your younger sibling comes and visits you. That's nice. That's sweet. But she's just horribly uninteresting as a tsundere character. In one episode, the protagonist takes her to, a fireworks show, a summer festival. She's like, "Oh, Oni-chan, you're really nice." Well, no shit, he's nice. And at the end of all this, he ends up getting respected by her. I'm being very vague here because I really did not care about this character whatsoever. She was just kind of there. Season 1's weaker in comparison to season 2, in my opinion. And again, I'm going to go into more quote unquote depth in season 2. Okay, now we get to Mocha. Mocha is my favorite character. Aside from Yui, I mean, I think Yui is my favorite. She appears in both seasons. But Mocha, among everyone else, is my favorite. She's the kind of childhood friend character. You gotta throw in that trope, of course. That's not always a bad thing. It's really not. What she is she is an aspiring musician. She's frequently seen playing her keyboard in the park and singing. And here's a little bit of trivia for anyone out there who knows anything about voice acting and seiyus in Japan. The seiyu who plays Mocha is Mimori Suzuko. I think I pronounced that right. Fuck me if I didn't. Suzuko Mimori. God, I'm an idiot. Just fucking hell. Anyway, she plays Umi Sonata in the original Love Live School Idol project, who I've always thought is a fantastic voice actress. She has a fantastic voice, and she sings in her ending, in Mocha's ending episodes. Anyway, I'm getting off track here anyway. She's a musician who's trying really, really hard to get into the music industry, and she continually gets rejected, and, she kind of blames herself. Am I not good enough? Am I not meant to do this? Am I not meant to pursue my dreams? It's relatable. I'm pretty sure a lot of people got to that point in some time of their lives. It's relatable to some extent. She feels like a failure. In the ending, it's kind of ambiguous. I mean, I believe the last line is, "Buddy, I'm home." So, what happens? I don't really know. I don't really care that much. I just wanted to lay that out. One Room has a very notorious thing of having these really fucking ambiguous endings. Like, it doesn't just get to the point and say, "Oh, this happens." It's kind of left up to your imagination. Okay, so that's season 1. So Yui, Natsuki, and Mocha. So let's get into season 2. We return to, like I said, Yui. Yui's storyline continues on. So they're dating. And so what do? Well, because every anime has to have a beach scene, they go to the fucking beach. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but there's a lot of fan service in this. There's scenes where the camera will just zoom in on their tits or their ass or something, and that's basically what the beach scene is. But what kind of stands apart from other ones is that she's kind of worried about him. You know, um, she says that she thinks that they're growing apart because he's been more busy, and maybe she's losing, or he is losing interest in her. I think that's an adequate concern. So they go back to his place, just to hang out for a while after going to the beach, and then this happens. Like, again, it's vague, but it's heavily implied that he has an attempt at, you want to do it. Yeah, that's kind of how it ends, and I'm 100% serious about this. I know it sounds really weird, but it immediately ends after that. It's not like, oh, hazikashi desu. No, it's not. So let's move on to the next part. He ends up working more, a lot more, and she starts to get kind of worried about this. Working more isn't a bad thing by any means, but she starts to think that maybe he's working more to avoid her. So there's this one very brief scene where she ends up kind of stalking him on his way back from work, and he catches her because Yui's kind of an airhead, and he scolds her. I mean, that's what the episode I think is called. And she's, clearly very distressed. She thinks she's going to get a breakup because of their little incident, and she didn't want to do it. Again, kind of understandable. So then what happens is that, the whole why is he working so much situation gets addressed. He gets her a ring. No, it's not a wedding ring. It's just, he likes her, clearly, and he gets her this nice looking ring, and she realizes, oh my god, I can't believe I was so paranoid that my boyfriend is working hard to get me something nice. And there's crying ensues, and she calls him Baka, and yeah, she feels like absolute god awful shit. And the last episode of her arc is, it's kind of pointless. They go to a bathhouse, a hotel that has a bath or whatever, and it's more like she's kind of embarrassed and awkward and all that, and in the end, it kind of ends up them just kissing, and she just says more. Now, there's going to be a season 3 of this. I didn't mention this, so I'm interested in seeing where I'm pretty sure Yui's coming back, where that goes on. So yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Minori. I think Minori is one of the more interesting characters. So in this part, our protagonist is working with this girl named Minori at a bathhouse owned by Minori's grandfather. They clean the baths, they run the counter, all that stuff. And apparently, business is declining. I don't know, maybe people are losing interest in bathhouses. Maybe their places not as high tech or whatever as other newer places. And, Minori's kind of distressed about this. So it kind of cuts to a scene where they're in her room and, they're listening to music, doing homework. And, she asks him, what are you listening to? And she likes it, and there's this smile, and obviously this is a start of oh, I kind of maybe like you. So then the next part, the summer festival is coming up. So her grandfather suggests he and Minori go because not many people are going to be coming to the bathhouse on the day of the summer festival. Understandable. So they go to the summer festival. She's got a yukata on, all that stuff. And then there's this part where she has some monologue about the future of her family's business company. You know, her grandfather's obviously probably aging, and she doesn't know what she's going to do. She just doesn't. So they go back and they kind of talk about, what do you want to do in the future? Because the school future thing is coming up. What do you want to do after you graduate? It's kind of a thing in anime. And she awkwardly brings up a couple of things. She wants to take over the bathhouse, from her grandfather once he gets old enough. That's a very respectable career choice. And then it gets kind of weird. Her grandfather doesn't think she should because she's a girl. Sexist. I don't know what to say about that. Maybe that's just her grandfather, whatever. So then she suggests this. If we got married, then we could run it together. Yeah, that kind of came out of left field. And then immediately after, she's really fucking embarrassed. Admittedly so. Like, I can't believe I just said that to him. But she really wants to run this bathhouse, so she realizes that she actually does like him because he does respectable things for the company. So then I'm going to fast forward to the rest of the part 4 of this. Again, One Room does a lot of very vague ending shit. The last part of it is, she says, huh? And then what I'm gathering is that he actually asked her to marry him, or at least in the future when she's legal or whatever. I don't know what the legal age in Japan is. I'm not that weird. I'd like to see where that goes. I think that something like that could be interesting to see. Not obviously in a pervert way, but yeah. And then the last part, Mashiro. Mashiro is I want to say she's a kudere. I'm not entirely sure. There's a fine line between tsundere and kudere, but whatever. So he meets her because she starts living in the same apartment as her. And I think at one point he's like taking a picture of her because she's really pretty or some shit. So obviously she immediately thinks he's a perv. And then he follows her back to the apartment. Not because he's following her, but because he lives there. Dumbass. So he gains the title Hentai-san. Now that's badass. I mean, of all the nicknames you can get, Hentai-san. Okay, so what next? At some point, she ends up at his apartment. Or he ends up at her apartment, excuse me. And we learn that she was a gymnast. She got injured, so now she's retired. So she can't do anything in that field anymore. And she's looking for new work. She doesn't really know what she wants to do. She just knows that I need a job. What do I do? So she ends up, getting some interviews, and she keeps failing for some reason, and she does not know why. And they practice a few interviews, and we find out that she's just blunt. She's blunt to the core. She has no, when you're doing an interview, you have to kind of just bend the social cues and say, if you're asked some dumb question like, why do you want to work for this company? Well, I really think that this company does great things, and I've always admired their passions for the products, something like that. But she just doesn't go that. She just said, I need money, basically. That's not an exact quote, but that's kind of what she says. So, yeah, that's why she's failing. So then he finds her an interview for a gymnastics teacher job, which is perfect for her. She may have been injured in the past, but she clearly likes gymnastics. This guy's pretty cool sometimes. I mean, he may be a pervert sometimes. He's hentai-son, for God's sake. So he encourages her to take this job. So she kind of pursues it and ends up getting it. And then we get to the kind of, obligatory, oh, I'll do anything for you because you helped me so much. It's not that sexual. It's just like, I want to lay my head in your lap pillow kind of scene, which is fine. And like he falls asleep on her lap and whatever. This is not a new thing in anime. And she starts talking to him, kind of thanking him. And let me say, at this point, he's most likely asleep. Most likely, quote unquote. And we never actually know what she finishes saying because it ends up with this dot dot dot, blah blah blah. So in the morning, she shyly mentions she's very grateful for his help. And then we don't know what happens after that because it's like she realizes that, oh, you knew what I was saying. You were actually listening. And then we don't know what happens because it's one room. Yeah. So, okay, let me just add a conclusion to this before I wrap this up. I've watched One Room multiple times. I think it is a relatively underrated anime. It does a lot of things wrong, but the concept is very cool to me. It kind of weirds me out that, we have these visual novels where, yeah, there's a lot of very insert protagonists. Yeah, they have lines, but we don't actually know what they're thinking. But this kind of leads you to your own imagination. What are you thinking? I don't know. I think it's a cool concept. Maybe a bit creepy at times. I would be crazy to say if it wasn't a bit just off. But I think if they actually like refine what they're doing, the first season was weird. The second season there was a lot more development in the characters. Yui and Natsuki in the first part were like, "Yeah, help me study," or "Yeah, your Emoto is here to help you with the housework." And Mocha was decent, and then Yui Minori and Mashiro much better. But I encourage you to give it at least a try. It's very short. Like I said, it's 4-minute episodes, 12 episodes. So you can watch the series in a little over an hour and a half, especially if you skip the ending songs, which are really good, by the way. That's where we get the OS memes, like Haramachi Clover. Shout out to all the OSU players out there. That's really all I have to say. This is kind of an improv, a very, very improv episode of this. I think I threw it together in like 20 minutes. It's taking me longer to talk about this than actual figuring out what I want to say. So, thanks for bearing with me in this. On a really weird anime. Am I weird? No, I'm not. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next episode. If you have any suggestions for the few people who watch the show, you can always throw them my way. So, with that, I will see you. Have a good night. Bye. Bye. Sayonara.